Our final agenda item has become a positive, and we look forward to this component of all of our recent agendas. It's a presentation that demonstrates how local courts have introduced new ideas, have incubated new ideas, as we say, about expanding methods to provide access to justice in their county that we hope can be modeled and replicated across the state. And this is through our Court Innovations Grant Program project, item 19084. There's no materials and no action needed here. It's a presentation, and I'm going to ask Judge Rubin to introduce your guests on the panel.
Thank you very much. And Chief, with your kind permission, it's my pleasure to introduce to the new members, our new Vice Chair of the committee to introduce the presentation. This is Judge Moorman from Mendocino County. She's been on the bench for 9 years. She's currently the presiding judge who was just elected to another 2-year term as presiding judge. Judge Moorman.
Thank you very much. Excuse me, I'm going to be seated. So thank you, Chief, and members of the council, for the opportunity to present another Court Innovations Grant Program project. The project, funded by the Budget Act of 2016 that established the Court Innovations Grant Program, implements programs and practices whose goal is to promote innovations, modernization, efficiency, all of which we hope can be replicated by other courts. Today we welcome representatives of the Superior Court of Fresno County, which has been awarded just under $509,000 under the Collaborative Courts Grant Funding category for their Human Trafficking Court Planning and Implementation Project. Welcome. This project helps a growing number of youth who are trafficked in the county, as well as runaway, homeless, and other vulnerable youth who are at risk for exploitation. This award has been used to enhance the court's existing innovative electronic dashboard to track human trafficking court resources, to conduct a regional mapping process to identify resources and gaps, to provide court coordinator services in order to leverage and maximize local court resources, and to provide a mentor program for the participants. I am pleased to introduce the Fresno Court representatives who are here today and will give the council an overview of the progress to date, share their participant experiences, and answer any questions that the members may have. And so I'm going to go ahead and introduce the panel. We have the Honorable Kimberly Nysom-Geist, who is, I hope I said that correctly.
Close enough.
She is the Juvenile Delinquency Presiding Judge. We have Ms. Yana Nebeshenitz. I hope I pronounced that.
That was really well done.
She is the Human Trafficking Court Coordinator. We have Ms. Tiffany Stokes, who is the Deputy Probation Officer in Fresno County, and Ms. Deborah Rush, the Chief Executive Officer of Breaking the Chains. I welcome you all, and thank you, Chief. Please go ahead.
Hi, thank you. I know that you have all been working really hard for a day and a half, and I thank you, Chief, and members of the council for inviting us and giving us this opportunity. And hopefully, while you've been making policy decisions for the branch, this is an opportunity for a snapshot of where those policies translate into very real change for very real people. We call our court Friday Court because we couldn't come up with a name that was otherwise appropriate and did not have some kind of street connotations. And I will admit to anyone that I am hopelessly uncool and will never be street savvy. So any name that we came up with had connotations for one person or another. Even the idea of calling it Freedom Court was a bad idea because survivors told us, what's the pimp gonna say? You want freedom from me, you can't go to that. So we went with Friday Court. It was one of our first trauma-informed steps because Friday is the day that we have our court hearings for these youth. We have capacity that we have not yet filled. We are able to accommodate boys and girls, but we have only girls. And what has happened, we've developed into a program where our girls come into a courtroom that is usually all women. Sometimes my deputy is a man and my judicial assistant, sometimes I have a male judicial assistant, but for the most part, they are entering a room full of extraordinarily strong, extraordinarily outspoken, very chatty and very supportive women. And so our biggest hurdle today is that we are all really close to each other and all very chatty. So our Friday court program was influenced, of course, by by receiving a grant. But a grant is more than money, especially in the eyes of a judge. In the eyes of a judge, a grant is responsibility. And success wears a lot of faces. Failure would wear only mine. And failure was not an option. So receiving a grant meant, of course, that we could do more things than we would have done without the grant, because quite frankly, we were going to do the work no matter what. But it gave us opportunities to think of how were we going to do this work and what did it mean. And knowing in the eyes of a judge that a grant means responsibility, a grant means data. And so the question at the beginning was, what is our data going to be? It's not that easy to think in terms of recidivism. It was easy before I had training in human trafficking. It's easy when you're thinking about people committing crimes. It's really hard to figure out what recidivism even means when you're talking about youth who've been trafficked. How do you figure out recidivism for victimization? Those are two concepts that don't go together. And how do I decide what it is that we're going to count for kids? So early on, having the grant meant letting the youth who participate in our court decide what our data is. And that shaped the entire development of our court. In the courtroom, I promise each of our youth that I will never ask them anything embarrassing, and we do not talk about what brought them there. They do talk about what brought them there, but they talk about that in the context of their service providers, in the context of a very private and safe environment. They don't need to tell a judge. They don't need it written down in a court. They need me for an entirely different job. They need me for one of my favorite jobs. My job is to hold them up. We are post-disposition, so we are all focused on how do we help you succeed. When they graduate, they get a certificate that says they've graduated from a strategic goal-setting program with judicial oversight through the Fresno County Superior Court. Nothing says trafficking. Nothing says they ever went through delinquency, dependency, or any other form of court hearing. It says a judge and a court team helped me figure out how to succeed. In the beginning of the program, I asked them to set their goals. We have them set 3 goals, and that's how we measure their success. We talk about that constantly. One of your goals was to be a good mom. How are you doing with that? How are we going to measure that? One of your goals was to graduate from high school. Congratulations, I see that you've gotten this many more credits. So that's what we focus on, is their goals. The tone of our court is different than anything that I've experienced, and I have another collaborative calendar, but this is different work with different people, a different team, and a completely different population. At the very beginning of our Friday court process, one of the first hearings was a young girl who had been a constant runner, and that was a problem for her. We had a plan for her case. Thank you. Of course. And that plan was that she was going to remain in custody. We had worked that out as staffing. She was going to remain in custody post-disposition because we all knew we were probably going to lose her before we got to disposition. And that plan had been worked out with the whole Friday court team. And our deputy district attorney, actually our assistant district attorney now, Tracy Fritzler, was there when we did the staffing, but had to leave because it was her mom's birthday. So somebody else took Tracy's position at the table when we actually called the case. When we called the case, I got completely different information because the girl's case manager said, this girl has never lied to me. Yes, she runs, but she has never lied to me. And when she tells me she's going to do something, she has always done it. And what we're trying to do is to gain their trust. And to do that, I have to earn theirs. So at the end of that hearing, even though it's not what we had planned to do, I let her go on the monitor. And in 2 weeks, she came back for her disposition. And so Tracy, speaking on behalf of the people, had one of the first comments there in the courtroom. And she looked at this girl and set the tone. And she called her by her name, and she said, you know, we had a plan for your case. And this is the district attorney speaking to her, the ADA. We had a plan for your case. And the plan was that you were going to stay in custody. And when I found out what happened, that you had gotten out of custody, I almost cried. And for the last 2 weeks, I have thought about you, and I have prayed for your safety. And you have been on my mind. And I am so happy to see you here. And that wasn't the very first hearing of our whole court process, but it was one of the very first. And it was this girl's first time. And all I could hear in my head, honest to goodness, was Tom Hanks' voice saying, "No crying in baseball, no crying in baseball, no crying in baseball." So we got through that hearing, and that girl got through that case, and she got through her whole case. She's now a successful college student with 2 jobs, owns her own car, and a future probably in criminal justice. And Yana was texting her this morning saying, if you could say anything you wanted to the Judicial Council, what would you say? And this is her answer to you. "Hi, Yana. Sorry I was in crim class. Good luck. You'll do great. I really appreciate the chance the court gave me. They never stopped working with me even after my VOP. Accountability and someone to talk to you and joy were a big impact for me. It inspired me to do better so I can reach my goals too. When the judge asked me to write out my goals, it helped me see that the path I was going wasn't going to get me there, and I needed to change my behavior." So we've had other successes and some that are not successes, but we make sure that each of our girls walks out knowing that they can achieve goals, knowing that they own their future, knowing that they have a safety plan. We owe a great debt of gratitude to the council. We owe a great debt of gratitude, Fresno does, to Judge Boulware-Uri and to Sacramento, because they offered us assistance, training, and support as we built a program that is uniquely ours, but easily shared with anyone else. So I will turn it to the rest of our team in a moment, but I told you some of the first words we heard in our first hearing, the last words we heard in the last hearing of our first year of operation came from a girl who was appearing by telephone. She appeared by telephone for her safety because it was in jeopardy if she was personally present in Fresno. And her last words on the phone, because learning from Judge Boulware-Uri, I always turn to the child last and say, "What would you like to say? The last word goes to you." And this is what she said: "Okay, you guys, bye. Love you." So I will turn it to Yana.
Yes. Okay. So good afternoon. Thank you so much for the opportunity of being here. I am the coordinator of Friday Court. I come from 10 years of experience of working in human trafficking, being a case manager, being a victim advocate. So when I first heard about the opportunity of creating a court for these minors, I was incredibly excited. These girls mean everything to me. I love working with them. I believe they are the most vulnerable population in Fresno County of youth. They are girls who have been through trauma that we cannot even begin to imagine. So how do we go from that to building a court that's going to be effective and helping them reach their goals? Because they all have goals, they all have dreams. They've just met a trafficker who has taken them off that route. So how do we bring them back? So my first concern was, how do we build not just a trauma-informed setting, but a trauma-responsive setting? So that means our waiting room, which you can see in front of you, was initially benches bolted to the ground, very just court setting. So I knew if you bring the girls into this setting, they are going to respond like defendants. And they're coming into this court because they've been a victim or they've been at risk. And so this room has been completely transformed. We've taken out all the benches. It's become the girls' room. I've asked them, what do you want this room to look like? So it's a room that before they even go to court, they come in here. We have a therapy dog, little Abby over there. She can sit in their laps. They just come in there. They talk to other survivors, survivor mentors. They talk to case managers, victim advocates. We play games with them. We bring their anxiety of coming into court from a 10 to my objective is about a 5. So that way when they actually walk into the courtroom and hear from the judge, the DA, and their attorney, they're in a state where they can actually hear what's being said to them. So we do the work up front here and talking to them and bring them into a state where they can come into court and their frontal lobe can actually be engaged, where they can hear what's being said to them. So that's an exhaustive list of everything that we try to do to make sure that we're trauma responsive. And then the model that we've built, Judge has gone over it. So before they even, at the very initial referral, when I get the referral in a special inbox, I match them with a victim advocate that is highly specialized and trained in human trafficking. So that means a lot of these girls, as people who have interacted with this population know, will go to their graves denying that they are at risk or they've ever been exploited. Trauma bonding is a thing. So a lot of them will not want to participate in Friday court because there's a label, there's a stigma of being labeled as somebody who's been exploited. So before they get in front of a judge and an attorney, they talk to a victim advocate that goes over a safety plan and initial assessment. So even if they say no to our model and participating in this program, they've at the very least received a safety plan and received some resources. And then if they do opt in, then we get the lovely opportunity and privilege of interacting with them for about 9 months to a year, sometimes over, just depending on what they need from us. And they set 3 goals that they want to work on. The first stage, and within each stage, we've set 3 benchmarks that they should be working on with their case manager and their victim advocates and the team. And we're mainly focused on making sure they have a safety plan. So if we never see this young girl again, does she know who she can call in the middle of the night? Does she know where she can go? Does she know how to keep herself safe? Because we know how high risk trafficking is. And we focus a lot on school. So in stage 1, it's enroll in school. In stage 2, it's are you attending school? If you're not attending school, why? What's going on? Is there trauma that's triggering you? Can we enroll you in home studies? What are the options that we can work with? And then stage 3 is preparing them beyond the structure and the team of support that you have. Once you leave us, who do you still have on your support team to make sure you can still reach the goal that you have? And then upon graduation, we try to throw them a little special. I try to individualize it as much as I can, whatever the youth likes. They do receive a special necklace that's made by survivors of human trafficking. So we talk about the fact that there's other women out there in the world that have gone through what you've gone through, and look what they're doing now. So again, encouraging them, positive role models. They get personalized things from the entire team, and we make sure that by the time they leave us, we can wake them in the middle of the night and they have 3 phone numbers memorized. They have a safety plan that's expanded from when they first started with us. So it's a lot of work. It's incredibly intensive, very challenging, but it is, I would say, the most rewarding work that I've ever done.
And Tiffany, I'm the probation officer that sits in the courtroom, and just a little bit of how I become involved. I actually have a couple of challenges because I deal and work with the victims. I also work in the placement unit, so I already have a challenge of youth that have been removed from their home and are already at a higher risk because now they don't have the parents, they don't have the grandparents, the legal guardians, and they're usually in a short-term residential treatment program, which is the fancy word for group homes, which I'm sure you guys all are aware. So I have that challenge that doesn't necessarily work in my favor, and doing the probation officer work is easy. I mean, you can do the prevention, the intervention, you can give them the programming, you can give them the structure and accountability and incarceration if needed, but the challenge comes up even more being a probation officer, wearing a Friday court hat and wearing a probation officer hat. There are things that I have to do to uphold the court orders and make sure that they're doing what they need to do to get off probation, but at the same time earning their trust and knowing that I'm also here to help them and I want what's going to work for them. I want them to have that normal life once they are no longer on probation and hopefully out of placement. A lot of the girls, and I know we say girls a lot, but males can also be part of this calendar. A lot of the girls that I work with they've been in the system since they were probably 2 to 5 years old. And so trying to get them when they've gotten into this life at 10, 11, 12 years old and still continuing even into our extended foster care program through placement is also a challenge, and I try to follow them until they are 21. I've had a lot of girls fire me as their probation officer, but then I get the request to cease of, I'm sorry, I was upset, I get it, I know why you did it, and let's move forward. I pride myself in being a trusting person to them because we know these girls, a lot of them have had breakdowns in their trust, and they don't trust anyone. They know how to fend for themselves, and what's going to work for them is what they're going to do. Challenged a lot with locating placements. I try not to keep our girls in Fresno County, obviously, because that's what they're familiar with, that's what they know, and I feel like if I place them further out from Fresno, the more likely they are willing to work their program and hopefully want something better for themselves. The particular young lady we're going to call, she recently had a birthday, has been great. She has grown into such a young woman, maturity-wise, and understanding the risks associated with being in the life, and taking the steps of writing a victim impact statement against her trafficker was a huge step. Even though she has recently terminated probation, she is willing to stay where she is to better herself and make better choices for herself, and is also considering leaving and going to other places and not coming back to Fresno, which is a huge step for a lot of our girls. So I am going to call her, for the sake of for her safety, I will be referring to her as Cruz, and I will give her a call. Give me 1 second, please.
And maybe while you do that, I did skip a slide. We do have an electronic technology piece to Friday Court. There's an internal and external piece of it. The internal is case management. It's where we keep track of all the client demographic information. I keep track of my referrals, their goals, and then if they have any immediate tasks. So it allows the team to put in immediate information, because we know the situation changes hourly for these girls sometimes. And so how do we as a team make sure that we're in communication? And then the external piece is to track resources in Fresno County in human trafficking. So these girls are able to pull up an icon on their phone. Is she there?
Go ahead, keep going.
And just be able to see what resources, what's the primary contact number. And there are pieces of it that are safety. So there's a quick escape button, just like domestic violence and sexual assault. So we are monitoring to make sure that this resource and the technology piece is built in a way that's safety-minded.
Okay, thank you. Hi, Cruz, how are you?
I'm doing good.
So I have you on speaker in the room with everyone, and if you can just give us a little, brief or overview of what you feel Friday Court has done for you, if there are anything that you particularly enjoyed, whatever you'd like to tell us about your experience with Friday Court, we're here to listen.
Okay. My experience with Friday Court was really good. I liked how there are so many people that would want to help me. At the time before Friday Court, I really didn't feel like I was appreciated or loved or cared about. If there was anything I could change, that would be not getting locked up. Breaking the chains, it was really helpful. I loved working with the people at Breaking the Chains. I really love them. They're really close to my heart, as well as all you guys. I really don't know what to say. But the most fun of it, I believe, was getting off probation and getting incentives for moving up stages and stuff like that. But yeah, that's all I have to say.
Cruz, this is Judge Nystrom. Guys, do you want to tell them about the book and the package at graduation?
Oh, yeah. So, House 15. Yeah, the package, I love it. It was awesome. Like, there was 2 bags of hot Cheetos, butterfly necklace in it. There was just a lot of stuff. I have the diploma for the graduation thing, and it's hanging on my wall, so it's my thing. So it was a little dream big, or believe in your dreams. And the necklace I'm actually wearing right now, as we speak.
Are you okay?
But yeah. Yeah, I'm good. I'm just like, I don't know what to say.
It's okay. You've said what you wanted to say, which is good, and that's all we could ask for. We just wanted them to be able to hear your input and your experience. How's Santa Cruz?
Santa Cruz is awesome. On Sunday, we went to the boardwalk, and there's this ride that I got on, and the whole time I'm just screaming, Jesus, Jesus. And then there was this little kid that was just looking at me like, he's like calm down. It's just a ride.
Good. Well, I'm glad you're doing well.
Thanks for talking with us. We're going to hang up now, okay?
You're welcome. Okay, I love you.
You
Bye.
too. Bye.
They're actually on an outing in Santa Cruz, so, and staying at a beach house, so she's really excited, experiencing things she hasn't experienced, so it's really good.
Deborah.
I'm Deborah Rush. I am the founder and CEO of Breaking the Chains. And just so you know who we are the comprehensive service provider there in the central San Joaquin Valley. So we are the boots on the ground. We provide direct comprehensive services from time of rescue all the way through transitional care. We also provide services to adults, male and female, juveniles as well. We have long-term housing on campus, so we have a myriad of services. I did write something down that I want to share before I go into talking about relationship and advocacy, and probably one of my most favorite components of what we get to do right now. So what I want you to understand is that it is incontestable that relationship is the single most critical component necessary for healthy emotional development. When this critical component is missing, I think we can all agree that it causes a myriad of issues that affect every cognitive portion of our brain, our reasoning, our reception, and our abilities to operate each and every day. Now, from that place, we have developed one of the most essential pieces in the Friday Court system, our Friday Court Peer Mentor Program. Peer-mentor relationship is best described by us as connection, advocacy, support, and accountability. Our peer mentors, they provide support, accountability, and act as a healthy sounding board for our girls. They help set boundaries, and they also give the unfiltered objective truth and guidance that these girls need based on the similar shared experiences they have all experienced. This relationship is incredibly valuable for the mentee, and I can guarantee for the mentors as well. It helps them to ensure long-term success and healthy reintegration. Offering positive but sincere feedback keeps the mentee motivated, and this non-judgmental, non-biased platform is where the mentee feels most comfortable discussing their ideas and their goals without fear. From this place, I want to let you know that I'm not just speaking to you here as the CEO of Breaking the Chains, but as a survivor myself. I'm not just a survivor, but I'm a second-generation survivor. I quite literally was born into human trafficking. My mother and my family was trafficked prior to me. This is something that has impacted every area of my life, and something that my experience doesn't just pull from, but thrives from. What you've heard from Cruz this morning is more than just her ability to reintegrate back into the community, it's relationship. For almost each and every victim that we serve, there's one consistent vulnerability. A relationship in their life was destroyed. If that's because of identity, if that's because of something like an abandoned family, lack of parenting, or simply an insecurity that was birthed deep down within, the relationship with themselves, with their peers around them, with their family members were impacted. Friday Court, as you can see, because of the great collaboration that we have built, begins to repair that relationship. And in that place that we repair that relationship, we also come alongside of them and begin to create a platform where they can feel safe. And the place that these survivors feel most safe is next to other people who've had shared experiences. You see, when people around you have damaged the most critical point of trust in your life, it's hard to trust those in front of you. You see, for most of our kids, and I'm sure you guys know this, they've experienced broken foster care systems, they've been tossed from home to home, they've had broken friendships, and in that place, it makes it very difficult to understand or even try to understand how the person in front of you really wants to help you. But when someone who has that shared experience stands next to you and begins to encourage you and begins to help bring about a new perspective, the success levels skyrocket. So we're really excited because at Breaking the Chains, we have been in existence for about 6 years, and we have about 13 of what we call our thrivers. These are incredible young adults who have not just launched into their new lives, but they have begun to thrive. They work in the judicial system, they work with courts, they work in our factories, our industries. One of the most famous that I would like to reference today is R.M. Paul's. R.M. Paul's received
an incredible award in Washington, D.C. last year. An award that not only just emulated where she is as a survivor, but also where she is as a thriver and as a mentor. She's taken on some of our own personal clients as well as assisting one of our own survivors, Dominique Brown, with being the program supervisor for this. So again, I cannot thank you guys enough for everything that you guys are doing here at the Judicial Council, what you have done for us in Sacramento to help guide us to this place, and for the bottom of my heart as a survivor, to tell you that what you do today in coming alongside of our children matters. And you know what? It's the reason I am here today sitting before you. So thank you.
We're happy to answer or to try to answer any questions that you have. We don't have all the answers because we have said from the beginning, we kind of are building a bridge as we go, and we take a step and think it might hold weight, and so we try it. And we change as we go, but we're happy to try to answer any questions you might have, and very grateful to you for the opportunity and for the grant.
Yes, Judge Stacy Bulwer-Uri.
Comment and a question, as you might imagine, but I want to start with, because I want to make sure it didn't get lost. Judge Nystrom, guys, you indicated that you were going to do the work anyway. So can you put a fine point on what the innovation grant enabled Fresno to do?
Yes, several things. First of all, the Innovation Grant provided the funds to hold a community convening. And we did that early on. We did that in October, grant funded in July. In October, we hosted a community convening and had about approximately 106 people that we hosted for a day and a half. It was community mapping. It was a question of, we knew what Sacramento had built, we knew what Los Angeles had built, but we're Fresno. We're a different place entirely, and the question was, what does our community want to build? Who wants to come alongside of us? Who wants to participate? And what do you bring to the table? And that day and a half was incredibly valuable. I don't know what I thought our court process would be, but I know it wasn't this. I know it wasn't what came out of it, because it has evolved based on our community, and that community convening was a big part of the grant. The second thing the grant has done for us is in my mind, the most valuable, is it brought us Yana. It would have been completely impossible for me as a judge to try to coordinate this. There is too much that a judge shouldn't know and shouldn't be involved in. There are too many interrelationships. These girls know each other from the street. They've shared traffickers. They have good experiences and bad experiences together. Law enforcement is actively involved in their lives, in our community, and in investigations. There are things that I can't know, because to know it about this girl means I'm going to know something about that girl and about that boy who may be the trafficker who's going to come into my courtroom next, or maybe another victim and doesn't want me to talk about that. So having a court coordinator who took that 106, when I went into Yana's office right after the convening, she had Post-its, like it was like wallpaper Post-its of this agency and that agency. And it wasn't just that agencies came together. There was one man who was in his 90s. We asked him if he wanted to be on the advisory council, and he said, no, my wife's health is failing, so I can't. He was just a guy I kept running into at Rotary. I was out everywhere I could talking to people about this, at Rotary meetings or this meeting or that meeting, who was interested, who'd say, well, can you come speak? And it was all kinds of individuals, agencies, doctors, social workers, probation officers, but people from the community, moms, survivors, who came in and said, this is what we think is important. So having a court coordinator is essential to us, and Yana's work continues to be essential to us. Yana's impact on me and Deborah's impact on me has been tremendous. Yana, can you bring up the picture of the waiting room again? Yes. First time I met Yana was when she was with the EOC, and one of the first things she said to me is, it needs to be welcoming. These girls it doesn't take much, it takes a cup of water. And just like I heard Tom Hanks in my head, all I could think was, oh my gosh, court is not like that. You walk in, you're going through a metal detector, there's deputies, there's this, it's industrial. Court is not welcoming. And the next thing in my head was, well, what if it could be? What if we could build it so it could be? And the grant enabled us to build it so that it could be welcoming, to build it so it could be trauma-informed. And I'm sorry to say, we're going to lose Yana in the next 60 days or so to the FBI, because the price of working with great people and great talent is that great talent is needed in many other places. But we have someone that she's training who's coming behind her, who is getting the training that is needed and has a great deal of experience with the court and with kids. And we're all going to keep going. We are a personality-driven calendar, but that means that each of our personalities comes alongside the others. The grant also enabled us, and I am not, one of my friends says technology, I hate technology and it hates me. I don't even watch TV because it's too complicated. But the grant did fund the technological piece. That is the dashboard, which is going to be of great use to our service providers, useful in the hands of our girls, and useful also in the hands of court personnel who are not me. So those are the things that the grant particularly did. The grant allowed us to take a breath. The grant required me to say, what are you actually trying to do instead of chasing windmills? Just knowing the work needs to be done and we're going to do it, it made us come together as a community and say, what are you going to do? Not just we're going to do it, but what is it you're going to do and how are you going to go about it? So the grant had a tremendous impact on the work that we do, defining it, helping us hone our data, and helping us move forward.
Yes, Judge Conklin.
So knowing you better than some do, and your determination, the grant has some limits. Do you have any concepts of being able to expand this program beyond, I mean, these victims unfortunately expand into adulthood, taking this to adult court and offering this and having some type of service where those that are beyond the 12 to 17 can benefit from your innovations?
Well, if you're asking just me, yes, I would love to see that happen in adult court on the criminal side. Yes, we have non-minor dependents who can be 18 to 21 who can participate in our calendar and receive those services. But part of the growth tension that we have right now, and it is not interpersonal tension, is recognizing that my view of them, we are a collaboration, but we are a court. So I am still the juvenile court, and my role in their life should be limited. The court's role in their life should be limited. I want them off probation. I mean, every breath I'm hoping, do what you need to get off probation, because at the end, for those of you who are not in juvenile law, the law is they do well enough, I have to seal their records, and it is the best have to that ever came apart in any law as far as I'm concerned, because all I'm thinking is, get off probation, let me seal your records, let me seal your records. So they need to move on from the juvenile court process. But the Survivor Mentor Program is that relationship that can take them, my participants, takes them to the next step. So they can continue to participate until they're 21 if they want to do AB 12 benefits. But the Survivor Mentor can take them to Deborah and to her organization, which can provide services on into adulthood. So yes, we have that capacity now. We have unrecognized capacity where we can serve more kids and in different ways than we do so far, but it's a voluntary program. They have to want this. It's not something that we can force on them. And our premise is asking them who they are, because if you don't get to choose who touches you, you don't get to choose anything. So asking them, who are you and what are your goals and what can we do to restore you to yourself? That's what we're trying to do. But yes, I actually do have that dream of this similar thing happening for adults, because the law is there that would allow it. There's vacatur, there's the affirmative defense that applies to adult human trafficking victims. One of the services, one of the things that we talk about with our kids is accommodations that they can expect from any court, anywhere in the state, because our girls may be in Fresno court, but they may have traffickers in Alameda or Orange or other counties. So we want to make sure that they know that they can ask their district attorney in that case, because these kids may have a district attorney that they perceive as their enemy in juvenile court, but a district attorney that they perceive as their friend in adult court. So letting them know, ask your DA, do you have service dogs? Ask your DA, tell your DA, I'm afraid to see him, and find out what can be done, because any judge anywhere in the state has the ability and the responsibility to accommodate.
I want to say 3 years ago, we had no idea how the millions of dollars could be used. We just knew that we wanted to give the courts an opportunity to show us how they could use them in your community. And at least as far as I'm concerned, I am completely inspired and in awe of the work you're doing collaboratively and how you are changing the future for so many people. And we share your hope that this can be expanded above and beyond Fresno County and young people to adults, because this is really the answer to recidivism. And so what you've said here today, I know I am thrilled with what you're doing. And it's clear how much all of you are so enthused. And if that comes through to young people who come in contact with you, it will change their lives forever. So I can't thank you enough.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's been our privilege to be here, and it's our privilege to do the work.
Thank you. Thank you.